Hey everybody, GC13 here. I didn't expect to be back at Summer Camp Island again so soon, but I've done a lot of thinking about the ending of the Season 4 episode Spirit Balls, and I think I've cracked the case. Come with me, dear viewer, and I'll explain to you why Emma is actually Mildred. But who is Mildred? That's a fair question. She's only ever mentioned in one episode, Meeting of the Minds. In order to persuade the others to help her lock away Hedgehog's wand, Susie tells the story of Mildred, a prodigy of a witch who wasn't too fond of doing what she was told. Rather than learn to use her powers responsibly, Mildred quite literally stormed out of town, dispensing all sorts of magical mayhem onto the unsuspecting onlookers before she disappeared into the woods. Now, there are a few characters on Summer Camp Island who live in the woods, but only 2 of them are witches, and since one of those witches is Ramona, who hadn't even been born yet when Mildred ran off, that leaves one, Emma. Emma lives quite a comfortable life in the woods. She knows all of the best forage, and while I don't know if she's ever found a friend, she still has plenty. The flowers, trees, and animals all love her, which really confuses Mallory. Oh, Mallory. Poor Mallory. Instead of working with her to come up with a coax for their spirit ball, Emma allows Mallory to be possessed by the spirit of a soggy old log. When an exorcism by the coven fails, Emma is able to slink away and perform a sneezercism on Mallory instead. While at first glance that sneezercism seems to be simply paying off the way Emma freed Mallory from a hole earlier in the episode, Ramona called sneezercisms a lost art. That is to say, something that people don't know how to do anymore. Now, because immortality is so common among witches, you'd have to expect that even a lost art still has living practitioners somewhere, so that would explain why Ramona didn't make a big deal out of it. Or, perhaps, like the audience, she simply thought Emma got lucky in properly carrying one out. Whatever her reason, if it were as simple as make them sneeze, then it wouldn't be a lost art, now would it? The episode wasn't over after Emma saved Mallory, though. The final scene is back in Emma's woodland home, in a laboratory of some kind. We get to see that she has a fair few books around, and while we don't get to read very many of their titles, we do see 3. Emma has books about soul transferring, life extension, and dark magic. Thickest of these is the book about soul transferring. It has 3 separate bookmarks in it, meaning she's been referring to this one a lot. But of course, it's conspicuously placed on the table next to a book about life extension. The book about soul transferring makes sense for the scene, as do its bookmarks, because Emma is currently taking a spirit and transferring it into a previously mundane flower. The book about life extension, though, what would she be referring to that one for? I think it's actually a hint. It's not the only one, though. While the soul transferring book does fit into the scene naturally, it still doesn't belong. Tell me, which one of these things is not like the others? The book about soul transferring is the only one with an author, which means its author is another hint. That author is none other than the famous Mildred herself. While I'll allow you and the show writers the truth that surely there have been multiple witches named Mildred, this is a work of fiction, and so the writers can't make multiple Mildreds important to the story, or they'll just confuse what is real. So, here's the part where I tell you a story. Mildred was a young witch back in the heyday of witches, and she was good at it. Wild and out of control at times, it's true, but a natural. After leaving civilization, she made a new home in the woods, continuing the study of magic at her own pace. At some point, she became an expert in the art of soul transferring. Such an expert, in fact, that she authored a weighty tome on the subject. But she wasn't just a writer, she was a reader as well. Not only did she learn about the art of the sneezercism back when its practitioners and their teachings were far more common, we see that she also learned about life extension. It was her expertise in soul transfer that would result in her becoming Emma, though. Whether it was because she learned about life extension only after her original body had become too old, or perhaps because she wanted a body more adapted to life in the woods, or maybe even because she wanted a fresh start with other witches, she transferred her soul into a frog. Maybe it was just a normal frog, in which case her spirit altered its body to be more like her original bipedal one, just like a spirit does when it possesses a witch. Or maybe that book about dark magic wasn't a red herring after all, and Mildred took over another person's body. Either way, there was no way anyone would recognize Mildred now. When magic fled to Summer Camp Island, she was able to introduce herself as Emma, and no one knew any different. You can't say Emma doesn't strike you as an awful lot like Mildred. Why did Mildred flee into the woods in the first place? She didn't like being told what to do. Who chafes under Susie the most? Far and away, it's Emma. And, just like we established at the start of this, Emma lives in the woods, just like Mildred must have. Just like Mildred would still be most comfortable. And besides, one of the few shots we have of Mildred has her with a frog on her head. The books weren't the only hints. She's come a long way since her early days. Instead of running away, she grits her teeth and bears it, no matter how overbearing Susie becomes. Still, somehow I doubt she'd be part of a coven if it weren't for the sake of saving magic. Mildred, now Emma, seems quite happy being alone, and I don't know if that's ever going to change. What do you think? Do you believe that Emma is Mildred, or do you think it's all a coincidence? Do you think the show will do more with Mildred? Let me know down in the comments below. Like the video if you liked it, dislike it if you didn't, and make sure you subscribe to the channel for more cartoon videos.